Hey, what's up, size viewers? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about a topic that I've been thinking about since I created this channel. And I got a lot of questions on my DA and sometimes on my YouTube where people ask me, how do I create these stories? And I want to be able to sort of kind of give you a bit of a couple of writing tips. Now, it's not going to be GTS focus, but I want to just talk about if you want to make more stories for the future. These are some essential elements that I recommend you follow, and I'm going to sort of kind of give you a little bit of rundown on how exactly I create these stories. I actually um, go ahead and write drafts in a book, right? I actually take a paper and a pen and I write down my ideas and what I think about. And often or not, I take influences from anime, movies, cartoons, even, and a lot of different types of stuff out there, books even out there, or stuff that I've seen on writing.com. All sorts of amazing ideas that you can implement in these stories for yourself. Now, I want to give you guys a quick little background about myself. I used to love creative writing back in high school, and I was a person that, growing up, teachers used to always tell me that my reading comprehension and writing wasn't good. And the crazy irony of all of this, right, was I ended up actually, when I got to high school, it ended up being my best subject and doing very well, to the point where my school ended up putting me in honor programs, right, because of it. And writing became an integral part of my entire life. I just love to imagine a world that I can sort of control and create, and sort of just, write a story that makes sense, that's good, that's practical, and makes people happy. And this is coming from a person that throughout my middle school and elementary school life, I was a person that struggled a lot with reading and literature. I had to go to extra programs to get help, and for what it's worth, it actually paid off. It actually ended up improving my work over time. And then when I got to college, when I finally went into a business program, writing, some of my teachers had noted that I write very well. And essentially, I know how to put things together and do good presentations. Now, when I was in business, I did a lot of open presentations where I can speak to a bunch of businessmen who would listen to my proposals, my balance sheets, or my ideas and whatnot. We did a lot of presentations in college. Ever since I graduated, I sort of just been, living my life, just working and just kind of doing that. And I figured, why not make a YouTube channel based off of something that I really like and appreciate, and then sort of take an imagination and create a story of that. And what I want to do is I want to introduce you guys to that option. And I want to give you some tips. And this comes from a very good website, very basic elementary school stuff that you can keep in mind whenever you create your stories. Don't just write anything down, right? You want to just really think hard about the world you're about to create. And it doesn't have to be, put together the first time you make the story. It's going to unfold over time. And as the story unfolds, you'll be able to sort of make sense of what you're creating. So let's go ahead and talk about the essential elements of creative writing: action, character, conflict, dialogue, genre, pacing, plot, point of view, scene, setting, style, tension, theme, and I believe that is it. So with that being said, we want to go ahead and just talk about those real quick. And a lot of these are very basic. They're not very difficult to understand. Even in itself, when you look at the words, they're pretty self-explanatory. And what you really want to do is, with action, you kind of just want to be able to create what the goals of the character, right? So when you create a character, there has to be certain reasons for it. Now, you can create like a character in your story that kind of stands out as an NPC, but overall, your story is based off of purpose, and purpose should be a big theme in your story. Now, you don't want to have a story that has nonsensical, mindless purpose. What kind of themes do you want to teach? I haven't gotten to it on YouTube, but one of my characters actually has autism. Yeah, that's a thing. Some of my characters have insecurity issues. A lot of them do. And so over time, as the story unfolds, they overcome it in various different ways. And that kind of just what makes the story interesting, is that it's not a standard GTS story compared to the other ones that just tend to just be mindless, violent actions or very sexual arousal type stuff. My story mostly focuses on storytelling, and really, just size is really just a small part of a very big story. So action is something that, what kind of story do you want to make? Do you want to make a story that's violent, like the one that I described to you? Do you want to make it like kind of like what most people do? Make it very sexual based, or do you want to make a story that's about romance and about being gentle, being kind? Character. That's quite easy for you to understand. You want to create a personality for each character. And that was my struggle when I first created the story, was that a lot of the people, a lot of the girls and the boys were just too similar to each other. And I had to, over time, sort of craft every single personality, right? Hiroko is very different from Sachiko. Hiroko's a little bit of a meanie sometimes. She can be kind of brash in her personality. Sachiko is very timid, but very gentle at the same time. She's concerned. Faye is very independent. She's very strong-minded, but she's also very sweet, understanding, and compassionate. Midori is a little bit of like Sachiko, but a little bit more confident in herself. Michi and Natsumi are very different characters. And so each and every single character you create in your story, craft that personality. Use influences from wherever. It could be from your family, from the people around you, or other stories you read, right? As long as you make it distinctly unique, it's your story. Conflict, create the conflict. And that's the hard part. What kind of world are you going to create? What kind of conflict is going on in the story? Now, not every story has to have a conflict. Some stories can be happy-go-lucky. When I first started, I was thinking about going that route of being a happy-go-lucky story where everything is just absolutely positive, everything is just absolutely happy, and really, it was just something that I was thinking about doing, but then I realized that it wasn't necessarily such a great idea. Because if the story gets too happy and everything is just always positive, it gets boring. It gets dry. It's just like, oh, okay, it just nothing really happens, right? Everybody just has plot armor. Nobody dies. Nobody suffers. It's just, kind of how it is. And that was kind of what I realized. I realized that there was a point where the story got a little bit too happy. So I said, you know what? Let's create conflict. Let's add characters. Let's add bullies. Wait a minute. Let's add an entire world where people hate them and they can absolutely kill them. Let's give them powers. Let's make things unique. You can keep adding on very interesting stuff, and over time, your story will unfold and you'll start to see a big picture. It's like a big picture that you're constantly painting, and you're adding different things to make it look beautiful. And so whenever you write your story, just think of it in that manner. Think of it as a beautiful picture that is still unraveling, right? And it's a big one. Dialogue, okay, like I said, you want to, as that goes along with character. So with the character, you want to go along with how they speak. Hiroko talks in a very sarcastic, funny way. Tyler's a very like prankster type guy sometimes, and sometimes he can be very heroic. Haru's a very chill type dude. He's a very laid back kind of guy. Faye's very sweet. And then when you write out their words and their dialogue, you want to make sure that what they say matches with their character. And so overall, keep the dialogue realistic, right? You don't want to, if you want to write a story that's like about giantess fetish, you don't want it to be where it's like the girl's like, fee, fi, fo, fum, I'm going to do this to you. And it gets really predictable. It's too simple. It's too like, every single person does that. She doesn't always have to want to, be somebody that has to step on and crush people and whatnot. Make it realistic. Why would she say that? Question yourself. Why would she say that to somebody that she just met? Whatever idea you guys got going on in your stories, give purpose to what you want. Make your stories interesting, right? You guys come to my page because you find what I write very interesting. It's different. It's not something that people are used to. I get people telling me all the time, it says side stories. I never read a story, at least in 3D format, openly like this. I've read it in writing.com, but I never actually seen it done in 3D. And you guys can do the same thing. I'm gonna make a video teaching you how to actually create this content, and it's gonna be a good video where you can take what you wrote, maybe in your phone, or maybe you've done in your RP sessions, and you can make it real. You can make it cool for people to see, as long as you keep it clean and follow YouTube's guidelines. Genre, that's pretty basic: horror, romance, mystery, thriller, fantasy. You know, whichever. You can mix the two. You can have thriller, horror, fantasy all together. My story is a combination of fantasy, mystery, and I think that's about it. I don't think it's a thriller. Romance, and primarily romance. Romance being the biggest genre of all time. And that's in any platform, whether it be movies, books, anime, cartoons, anything. Romance is just everywhere. It's popular, and it will always remain popular. And of course, fantasy, you know, being that this story is an isekai, it's a fantasy. And so you pick your genre and you can mix it together. Keep the pacing good. Now, the next one is pacing. Pacing, you want to make sure that your story has a good pacing, right? We have problems where people say, well, certain animes are too fast, certain animes are too slow, and you want to be able to just make sure that your pacing flows with your story in a good way, and you don't want to take too long in one arc. Like, you know how back in the day where Naruto had a whole bunch of filler arcs that, for me personally, I just got bored with them. I love Naruto. Naruto is a good anime, but them filler arcs was something else. Sometimes I just wasn't interested. And so nowadays, in recent animes, they don't have as much filler arcs these days anymore. And so what people have complained that modern anime is too fast. So pacing is all about the speed of your story, right? You know, are you going too fast? Are you being way too descriptive? Are the characters too talkative? Sometimes my characters can be too talkative, and sometimes they don't. I kind of mix it up to two. And for the most part, you want to create a balance. And when you write your story, make sure that it's not too deep, but it's not too light. Keep it on a sweet spot. And that's kind of what you have to do with that. And of course, plot. That's pretty basic in itself. Plot is what's happening in your entire story. It can be a continuous story, sort of like Genshin Impact, right? Genshin Impact is always adding new characters and new DLC. And so we're finding out more lore in that world as their game continues, and that's sort of kind of a cash grab. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm sort of kind of going that route too, right? I'm just adding more interesting things. Even though I already wrote a gigantic premise, there are new ideas that I can add to the story that make it interesting. And again, if you want to make that your brand, which is kind of what I'm doing, then you should go forth and do it. Your plot, if you want to make your plot where it does have an end, bear in mind that people are going to demand more, and it all depends on if they like it or not. Okay, so we go to point of view. And how are you writing your story? First person, second person, third person. You know, it could be all three. It all depends. As long as it just doesn't become too, you know, strange. Sometimes I'll have moments where I'll do a narrator, little box on the pictures, where you kind of have where the narrator reads. So it all depends, you know. With point of view, I don't really put too much emphasis on it because you're already reading what's happening. So it's always, generally speaking, I think it's second person or third person when you read. I'm not sure. But first person point of view stories, those are difficult to do. And I tried to do a story like that, and it just didn't pan out. So that's up to you and how you want to do that. Scene. You know, you want to go ahead and create a scene in your story. You know, what kind of scene is happening in your story? And I would say scene and setting, both of these are two elements of literature and writing, is sort of go hand in hand, right? So you want to what leads up to a scene, and in the setting, what kind of environment is the scene taking place? So is it in a forest with a bunch of trees, or is it at night? Does it have rain? And if you're going to do a 3D or 2D representation, realize that that's going to be more work on your part. If some of you guys are artists on here, and some of you want to go into 3D art, you can create these scenes, but it's going to take time, right? It's not easy. And again, as I show you in the video, it's not an easy thing to do. So you want to create good work. You want to create good art. And or you can do it in a writing setting. But if you want to go on YouTube, it's good to have a visual representation. Sometimes I use 3D art, and sometimes I use AI art to sort of kind of give you a interpretation of what these characters look like in anime format. Okay, in style, choose your writing style. Are you a children's book author? Are you an adult writer? Or are you just a general writer? Choose your style of writing. Choose the way you want your audience to read your story. That's not too difficult. Most of the time, you guys already decided on how your stories are going to be. And so you kind of want to just be able to choose a writing that's easy, I would say, in my personal opinion, when it comes to writing these stories. And not too difficult. You don't want to make it too complex. Some of you guys are probably scholars and probably have expert writing skills, that SAT level of vocabulary. But you also want to be sure that it's not too intense, right? Most of us just kind of want to read something simple. So my writing for this kind of story is very middle school / high school. It's nothing too difficult, but it's also nothing, it also has a little bit of vocabulary from my education background. Considering that I've graduated with a business degree, I do have a little bit of way of speaking. So I do give presentations. I have words that I use. But as you see in my stories, I do make mistakes, right? I'm not perfect. Sometimes I miss a comma, or I might misspell a word, or I get confused with your, or there. And so that happens. And then that's just a human thing to do. And tension. Tension, that's easy. Characters who are essentially having tension between each other, or a scene where there's just this anticipation that something bad is going to happen. I created the tension of the headmistress for a long time, since the beginning of the story, and a lot of you guys were just like asking me questions like, who is this headmistress? Who is she? Who is she? Who is she? And that created a bit of a tension. And then there's even more characters that I even said way back when they're going to come in, and that gives the viewers anticipation of wanting to know what's going to happen next. And so you want to create that tension, that anticipation, like, oh man, I'm so invested, I want to know what's going to happen next. And that in itself is how you grab a viewer. That's how you grab your audience. You want to keep them grabbing. You don't want them to say, oh, this is so predictable. Make it interesting, be creative, and again, add tension to your story. And theme. I believe that this is the last one. I'm gonna go. I'm actually gonna read this. Right. This comes from masterclass.com, and I'm gonna read this outright because this is really good. A story theme is a broad conceptual philosophy an author wishes to convey through their work. For instance, the main theme of a story might be a statement on the human condition. If a science fiction author writes about a future in which humans are enslaved by robots that provide them with entertainment, the novel's theme might be a commentary about human nature as it relates to machines. Ultimately, a book's theme is an idea the author hopes the audience in mind will for deeper meaning. So this is really good. Really, really good statement right there, or a good fact. Your theme is about what the message, your story, basically it's the message of your story. And my story has a certain theme that I will not spoil. It's going to unravel over time. But your story has a message. A lot of GTS stories don't have a theme. Their theme is to basically just make you really aroused. That's pretty much it, right? So their theme is essentially to just, give you an arousing pleasure, momentarily, quick, satisfying, gratifying moment in the moment that you're watching a video or you're reading some kind of hentai out there. Well, if you're going to write a serious, gentle giantess story, escape that stuff, right? Escape all of that. If you guys are coming here and asking me, how to write a gentle GTS story, escape the naughtiness of those kind of stories and figure out, what kind of message can you create. And think the secret world of, I keep saying her name wrong, I think is Ariety or Ariety, I'm not sure. The theme of that story was about love, and that's what inspired me. It was about love between the small girl and the boy who was sick with a heart condition. And it's one of my favorite Ghibli movies, right? I love that movie, and if you guys get a chance, you should really watch it, it'll give you some ideas of how I got influenced by that movie. It was one of my favorite movies that came back out with 2011. By the way, the boy who played the actor who played the sick boy in the English dub was Tom Holland. Fun fact. Um, um, yeah, your theme, the message of your story is what you want your viewers to have, and I'm promoting a positive theme in a lot of these characters, right? You guys heard my commentary about how serious I take personality with the girls and the boys, and me and the two girls and my other friend. We really put a lot of thought into these characters. We don't want them to just be tinies and giantesses, right? We want them to be people at the end of the day, because that's what they are. And so when it comes to creative writing, you want to make sure that your story makes sense. And so, guys, that's all for today's video. I'm going to be uploading more, somewhat size related content. And again, I'm still working on the stories. You guys keep asking me, hey, size stories, where's the videos? They're coming back. I have to tell you guys this multiple times, that it takes a lot of work to work on all of those pictures that I did, right? And I have to correct all of that grammar, so it's not easy. And also, you can go on my DeviantArt, and you can see the stories are still ongoing, but in comic format. I'm also working with Kathy, who is my friend of mine. She might come onto here and actually do a dub for a video. We're going to do a test run, and so that's going to be pretty fun to do. Just so you guys know, we're both not voice actors, so I hope you guys keep that in mind. We're just people who just want to do something fun. All right, guys. So, everyone, my viewers, everybody who's on this channel, size, microfiles, macrofiles, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next video. Peace out.